Hello, Blue Jays fans, and welcome to Sunny Side of the Dome. Sunny Side of the Dome is brought to you by Jays from the Couch. We stream live Thursdays at 6 p.m., and I'm your host, Karen Soutar. I'm here to talk to you for the next half an hour or so about some Blue Jays baseball. So glad you could tune in. As I said, you can find us at Jays from the Couch's YouTube channel Thursday at 6 p.m. You can also access the live stream on our Facebook or Twitter page. And if you can't catch the live version, no problem at all. You can always catch the recorded version after the fact on any one of those medium. When you're ready for us, we're ready for you. And if you happen to be tuning in live and you have any questions or comments, please send them all in. I love that interaction. Really adds something nice to the show. And if you like the content here at Sunny Side of the Dome, there's lots more where that came from. There's the main Jays from the Couch podcast. That's Monday evenings at 6 p.m. That's hosted by Jays from the Couch's founder, Sean Doyle. Sean does a great job with the podcast. You never know quite what you're going to get from week to week, whether there's Jays from the Couch's other writers, they're joining them to add their 2 cents, or lots of different guests that he's had on, bloggers who cover other major league teams, players such as Jordan Romano, professional MLB media, Keegan Matheson, Shai Davidi. So lots of interesting stuff there on the Jays from the Couch podcast. And if you don't catch the live version, that is also available as a podcast, which you can download and listen to. So basically anywhere you get a podcast, Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, any quality podcast carrier has Jays from the Couch, so you can find us there. And the other show that's definitely worth checking out is Tuesday evenings at 6 p.m. It's The On-Feck Circle, hosted by my crazy colleague, Steve Feck. And you should definitely check that out if you haven't been already. Steve is very unique. He's never boring. He's smart. He's funny. I almost always learn something different when I tune into his show. And at times he can be a bit controversial. I don't always agree with everything he has to say. Actually, I often disagree, but that's fine. We don't always have to agree with each other, but we can listen and we can be entertained and maybe learn something. So the On-Feck Circle, Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Make sure you check it out. And happy Thursday evening, Blue Jays fans. How's everybody doing? Hope you're well. Looking forward to the game in a couple of hours or so. These Central Time Zone games. I mean, it's not that big a deal. Maybe it's an hour, but it just starts that much later. And for those of us like me who have jobs to get up and go to in the morning, it can be a bit tiring to try to stay up and watch as much as possible. So first off, before I get into anything else, a tiny bit of personal news. So for anybody who has watched this show, for anybody who's watched this show anytime prior to this episode, and now you're tuning in today, you might notice something a little bit different. We splurged on a new Apple iMac computer, so I'm using that for the podcasts now, and it's really great. Picture is really great, lots of great detail. Don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing for the audience anyway, but I like it. We're having fun with it, so there you go. Okay, so before the heart of today's order, as usual, some housekeeping items, and actually the last week, knock on wood, compared to several of the previous weeks, has actually been relatively quiet in terms of the transactions, and I mean, that's a good thing. If guys are, at least the guys who are healthy, are staying healthy, then we don't need any more guys on the injured list. So Ty Tice, he'd already been designated for assignment to make room on the 40-man roster, and he was actually claimed officially he was traded to Atlanta in exchange for cash. So Ty Tice, all the best to you. I hope you do well there in Atlanta. Kevin Biggio, he has officially started a rehab assignment with the AAA Bisons playing out of Trenton this year. And actually, the last I heard, I guess he's playing third as he has been pretty much all season for the Jays. He'd yet to see a ground ball hit to him, and hadn't actually been hitting all that much in a rehab assignment. So I'm not sure if they're going to leave him down there a little bit longer, and whether it's a case of letting him get healthy, or maybe get him a couple of games and him try to work back into Kevin Biggio form that we've seen in 2019 and 2020. I still very much believe that player is in there, and we're going to see him again. So Kevin, take your time, whatever you have to do, but come back and be the player that a lot of us know that you can be. And then one other move. So Danny Jansen, unfortunately, he was removed from a game, and then it was later revealed that he had a right hamstring strain, and as somewhat expected, he was placed on the 10-day injured list. And to take his spot, they called up Riley Adams. So Riley Adams, as you may recall, had been with the Jays earlier in the season. They called him up at first when Alejandro Kirk went on the injured list, but then, excuse me, he was called up. He was with the active roster, but he never actually got into a game. So that was kind of unfortunate for him. And then he was optioned back down. Well, now he's back up, and it looks like he might be here at least for a little while. We don't know how long Danny Jansen will be out, how long he'll need to get healthy. And Alejandro Kirk, even though apparently he's getting some at-bats, I think it's in an extended spring training game that I saw. So great that he's well enough to at least do that. Alejandro Kirk is on the 60-day injured list. So it's going to be a while, and he's got about a month before he's even eligible to come off that injured list. So we're not going to see him for a while. They needed a couple of catchers. They've got Reese McGuire. Obviously, he can't catch every day. So Riley Adams has been back, and we'll talk some more about him in a bit. So on to the heart of tonight's order. And actually, before I do that, excuse me for a second. Okay, so onto the heart of tonight's order. And I want to talk about the Blue Jays as a team, how they've been doing, some individual performances, and where I see this team, how I see them for the rest of this season and going forward. And I've got some comments to make. So some other fans and all of us, we're fans of this team. And everybody is different. Everybody is entitled to their different opinions and to express those opinions if they so choose. And I'm certainly not asking people to not do that. Even if I thought I could do that, I wouldn't do that. That's not right. Everybody has the right to express their opinion. Now, having said that, there are some people out there, they're fans of this team or so-called fans of this team who really seem to have a negative slant on so many different things. I mean, here we are, it's only June the 10th. The team has played 59 games out of 162. So they've got more than 100 games, just over 100 games still to play. And there are fans that are ready to say this team is definitely not a playoff team in 2021. Again, they have a right to that opinion and to express it. But for me, I find that very disappointing, frustrating. I really wish it weren't the case that people were out there and saying those things and so forth. And I broke it down, and it's been said for a little while now that the Blue Jays, of all 30 MLB teams, have actually had the toughest schedule in terms of the strength of their opponents and the winning percentage of their opponents. And that's actually about to change quite soon. And I broke down some numbers. So the Jays today, they finished their series versus the Chicago White Sox. So far, it's one game each. Rubber matches today. I'm going to say that they have a better than average chance to win today, even though the White Sox are a very good team overall. They're a first place team. But we've got our ace, Ryu, pitching tonight. And I know he didn't have a very good game his last time out, but I don't think he's had back to back bad games. Not that I can remember anyway. Like, usually, if he has a game that isn't all that great, that he'll bounce back and do a lot better the next time out. And on the other side, Dallas Keuchel, really, he's been so. He hasn't been terrible, but he certainly hasn't been great. Unlike the last couple of starters for the White Sox that had pitched really well going into their starts versus the Jays. So Dallas Keuchel, in theory, is someone that the Blue Jays hitters should hopefully could be able to score some runs against. So again, I give them a better than average chance of winning today's game. Fingers crossed. So that's it for that series. Then they've got 4 games against the Red Sox, who are leading. They're in the first wild card spot right now. They've also had a good season so far, better than maybe a lot of people expected. So looking at the remaining schedule, I've got it broken down into 3 categories. So teams, games against teams with a plus 500 record, 41. Games against teams with a sub 500 record, 52. And then I've actually done something. I've put the New York Yankees in a category all by themselves. So even though they are a team that's above 500, I'm not including them there. I've got 10 games against the New York Yankees in a category by itself, and I'll explain to you why. So the Yankees, even though their record is decent right now, and they're actually a half game above the Jays in the standings, the Jays have handled them very well so far this season. In 9 games, the Jays have won 6, and they've lost only 3 contests. So right there, I think the Jays have played them quite well, and I like their chances against them. As well, the Yankees as a team, they've kind of fallen on some hard times lately. I think a couple days ago they were 2-8 in their last 10 games. They've won a game or 2 in a row. That's against the Minnesota Twins, who have really underperformed this season so far. And now they're 4-6 in their last 10 games. But Corey Kluber, I mean, they went out and got a couple of guys to fill holes in the rotation. Corey Kluber did well at first, even threw a no-hitter, and now he's on the 60-day IL. So he won't be helping them for quite some time, if at all, the rest of this season. Jameson Taillon, and the other acquisition, they traded for him. Well, he's been healthy, at least as far as we know. He has an ERA over 5. So it's not like he's doing all that much to actually help the Yankees win games. So, and I mean, there's even talk, and I know it's still kind of early on June the 10th, but there's even some talk that maybe the Yankees, who many people expected to go to the World Series this year, might even be sellers at or before the trade deadline. Wouldn't that surprise the heck out of a lot of people, but maybe not everybody. So, I mean, for me, just right there, I think the Blue Jays have hung around and done the best they can with the schedule they've had, with the injuries that they've had, and with some inconsistency. I mean, you've had the rotation early on that wasn't that good, and they've rounded into form. The bullpen was really picking up the slack earlier, and they've kind of hit the skids as a group. But then I see them sort of bouncing back. I mean, last night, Alek Manoah, he did decent. He pitched 5 innings and gave up 2 runs, 1 earned and 1 unearned. But then his day was done, and the bullpen came in, and not only didn't allow any runs, they didn't allow any hits. And that included an inning by Tyler Chatwood, who he was great early on. And then, as we all know, he had, I think, 3 outings in a row that were really subpar. But maybe he's worked it out. Maybe he's back on track. I saw actually an interview with Tyler Chatwood, and he commented that this is the first time in his career that he's been used exclusively out of the bullpen. I guess before that he was either a starter or maybe more of a swingman, that he would start sometimes and then come in relief. But I mean, it's a change in role, and maybe some sort of adjustment was needed. But I mean, his last couple of outings, he looks like he's gone back to the good Tyler Chatwood. So fingers crossed there. But yeah, I mean, early on, the offense overall, with the exception of a couple of guys, definitely Guerrero Jr., he's been one of the stories so far this season. Other than that, a lot of the offense really got off to a slow start on the season. And as a group, they've been much better. They have some good numbers in a lot of offensive categories. Runs scored obviously being the most important one, because that's what you need to win. You need to score, and you need to stop the opposition from scoring. So I see them really coming together, with the benefit of an easier schedule moving forward, with contributions from the team. And as I say, they've at times, pretty much every part of this team, when you categorize it in that way, has had its struggles, but then they've come out of it, or to me, that they are coming out of it. And I see some good things happening. So, excuse me for a quick water break. So, yeah, some of the other comments that I've seen that kind of make me scratch my head a bit. Some people speculating that the Blue Jays aren't even trying to win this season, that the fact that they haven't yet traded for pitching, for help to the bullpen, is proof that they're really not even trying. Okay, so you people with these ideas, you have a direct line to Ross Atkins or something? You know something that I don't? Please share. Seriously, I would bet real money, and I'm sure there's no way to really know about this, but I would bet real money that phone calls have already happened. You can inquire about guys. That doesn't mean, Ross Atkins doesn't have a magic wand. He doesn't get to say, okay, I'm going to trade for this guy, this guy, this guy, and it automatically happens. You can make phone calls, and I'm sure phone calls have been made, but there are steps to the process. The Blue Jays have to identify someone on another team who they believe can help them right now, if that's their goal. And I think that it is. I think that they intend to contend and go as far as they can in 2021. Then those other teams have to be willing to trade that player or those players away. And again, I mean, it's still not even June 15th. So the teams that aren't doing well, whether that was expected or whether that's surprising in some cases, how soon do you want to pull the plug and trade someone away that could be seen as a signal to your fan base that, okay, you know what, maybe this isn't our year. We hope you'll still tune in and watch us on TV, listen on the radio, buy tickets to come see us, but we're not sure how competitive we're going to be. It's a balancing act how soon you want to do that. So, and then even if a team is willing to trade somebody away, they have to be willing to accept whatever the Blue Jays are willing to trade for said player. So there's a lot of steps involved. Now, people have talked about they have to make moves right now. If they wait, it's going to be too late. And it is entirely possible. I mean, as of right now, the Blue Jays are 6 games out of first place and 3 games behind the second wild card spot. So definitely within striking distance. Now, if they go on a big losing streak, knock on wood, it's always possible. I don't think it's will happen, but it certainly could happen. If that happens, if too much of that happens, then yes, they could get buried and they could end up in a hole that's too deep to come back from. But again, what kind of trades are you going to make this early? So there were some stats posted a while ago that the vast majority of trades going back over a period of several years, they actually happen in the month of July. Is it possible to make trades prior to July? Well, absolutely it is. But then I would look at those on an individual basis and really have to wonder how many of those trades were impact players, how many of those trades were players that the team trading them away was like, damn, excuse my language, like, man, I really wish that we had a way to hang on to this guy, but this just isn't our year, and it's better to give him up and get what we can. Are those the players that you really see traded away prior to later in July? I mean, I'm thinking back to a couple of trades that the Blue Jays were involved in. So one trade that they actually made when they were going for it, one of the trades that this front office actually made was May 31st, 2016. And that was when they acquired Jason Grilli from Atlanta. Jason Grilli came over to the Blue Jays. He became a fan favorite among many fans because of his competitiveness and really desire to win and all of that, as well as the fact that he was a pretty darn good relief pitcher in leverage innings for the Blue Jays, something that they really needed. Now, when the Jays first made that trade, of course, I heard about it. One of the first things I did was I sat down and looked at his stats, and they really looked underwhelming. Then I delved a little more into it, and I saw that he's someone who had come back from injury, so maybe he wasn't 100% at first, and then his last several outings had actually been scoreless, and I thought, okay, maybe he's turned a corner, maybe he's someone who can actually help the Toronto Blue Jays win some games, and I think he did in 2016. But how much did Atlanta trading him away, how much was he really a key part of their team? I don't think you can really say that he was. So again, if you're picking someone up, it might not necessarily be a David Price or even a Troy Tulowitzki or, a real impact player. And another trade, I said I was going to talk about two trades that the Jays had been involved in. So another one, it was 2018 when they weren't really contending and they were sellers, and they traded away Steve Pearce to the Boston Red Sox for Santiago Espinal. And Steve Pearce actually went to the playoffs with the Red Sox, to the World Series, won the World Series, and he was the World Series MVP. So great for the Red Sox and great for the Blue Jays because they got a pretty good player with some potential in Espinal. But again, you look at Pearce. So that trade happened in June. Steve Pearce, in the entire season of 2018, he had a wins above replacement, according to Fangraphs, of 1.6. So it's not like he was irreplaceable on the Blue Jays. He was a guy who could hit. His defense wasn't particularly great in any one position, and he happened to get hot with the bats at the right time for the Red Sox. So again, great for him, great for them, and it worked out. But if you see what I mean, I think the earlier you are, if you're fortunate enough to be able to make a trade and acquire someone that can help your team, you're almost rolling the dice as opposed to picking up a real proven commodity in a lot of the cases. So I really do believe trades are happening and they're going to happen. And I think the Jays will be improving their team. As well, I wanted to talk a little bit about Riley Adams, who mentioned before, and he finally did get into a couple of games. He started a game, and that was his MLB debut, and then he was brought in late yesterday. So Riley Adams, and he's starting today, and he's catching the ace, Ryu. So, and you can bet, I would be willing to bet that Ryu maybe had something to say about that. Yes, I know he's a right-handed hitter, and Reese McGuire is a left-handed hitter, and Charlie Montoya loves to play matchups and hit righties against left-handed pitchers, which Dallas Keuchel is, and so forth. So maybe that went into the decision a bit, but I think when your ace is pitching and you just want your best team on the field around him. It seems that way. So I think something like that went into it. So Riley Adams so far has had 5 plate appearances, 4 official at bats, because in the other plate appearance, which is not an at bat, he drew a walk. So he's had 1 hit. The hit was a double. It was solidly hit. In his first MLB at bat, he did strike out, but it's not like he looked lost at the plate. He did work the count. It was a full count, 3-2, and then he ended up striking out. But Riley Adams has looked pretty good. I mean, the commentators, Buck Martinez, a former catcher himself, commented that he looks very comfortable behind the plate, and he's someone, I think he's got some potential. And the Blue Jays, it's been talked about before, they've got 5 catchers, even though Alejandro Kirk is not officially on the 40-man roster right now because he's on the 60-day injured list. But I'm counting him as part of the mix. We know that when he's healthy, he is part of the mix. So as well as Alejandro Kirk, Danny Jansen, Reese McGuire. Now we've had a look at Riley Adams a little bit in MLB, and he'll be here for at least a while longer, and who knows how long after that. And then you've got Gabriel Moreno, who's absolutely tearing it up in Double-A, and who knows how much longer he'll be in Double-A. I'm not saying rush him to Major League Baseball, but at some point he keeps doing what he's doing for another month, and you got to think there's a promotion to Triple-A there for him. So, I mean, that's 5 catchers. Well, you know what? The Blue Jays are never going to use 5 catchers in Major League Baseball all at the same time. It's just not going to happen. And that means that they've got this value, they've got this surplus in the organization, and somebody at some point is going to be traded, and they'll help bring back value to the Blue Jays. So it's great that Adams is getting this opportunity in MLB, and that could go a couple of ways. If the Jays decide that he is in their top 1 or 2 catchers in the organization as far as everything he brings in to the table, well, you know what? Maybe they keep him, and maybe they see if Jansen or McGuire or whoever, maybe they see if there are other teams that are interested in trading for those guys and help bring them back some immediate pitching help or whatever. And even Alejandro Kirk, I'm not pushing anybody out the door. I really like a lot of these guys, different things that they bring to the table. I mean, Alejandro Kirk, he's the kind of player that's could fall out of bed and get a base hit, it seems. He just hits and hits some more. So do the Jays keep him long term? Is he even a catcher? Do they make him a full-time DH at some point just to get his bat into the lineup? I mean, there's different ways that you can go, but I think the Jays are in a very good position at position player wise that is coveted, and it's hard to find good catching help, and I think the Jays can really turn this into a strength. So they've got things that I think are going to they're going to keep moving forward for them. George Springer, we keep hearing updates. He's been running the bases. We've seen some videos posted online and so forth, and he's looked fairly good. And they're saying that apparently a rehab assignment is coming up very soon, but they won't commit to a date. That's fine. Again, I want to see George Springer back when he is truly healthy and ready to be back, and not before, because I don't want him going back and forth to the injured list. When he comes back, I want him healthy. I want him ready to contribute, and hopefully, knock on wood, not going back on the injured list again this season. So we'll see how that goes. And we're almost out of time for today's episode, which brings us to through Blue Jays colored glasses. So, sticking with the theme of the team and the team's performance, I'm just very optimistic about their future in 2021, definitely beyond 2021, but I believe in them this season. They've had their ups and downs. They lost a series on the weekend, unfortunately, to the Houston Astros, 2-1. Well, that was the first series that they had lost in 4. That they won their previous 3 series before that series on the weekend. So yeah, they're going to have their ups and downs like any team does in a season that is 162 games. It's just, you don't know, nobody wins 162. It just doesn't work that way in baseball. But I think this is a very solid team. I think they've made improvements already organically just in the players that they've already got on the field. I think there are guys that are coming back. As I said, I really think at least 1 or 2 impact trades are going to happen between now and I think July 30th for some reason is the trade deadline this year, not the 31st. Don't know why, but anyway, I don't make the rules. But yeah, I mean, the guys they've already got, guys that I think will come off the injured list, Springer, Biggio, hopefully Kirk at some point, and they've got some pitchers down in the minor leagues. Patrick Murphy, he's been on a rehab assignment, I believe, with AAA. Maybe bring him up, have him pitch out of the bullpen. Now, no disrespect to Carl Edwards Jr., but I'm not sure that he's part of the solution. But there are upgrades to be had. Maybe Thomas Hatch. Some people have talked about even using Nate Pearson out of the bullpen. He hasn't been that great as a starter, and that includes being sent back to AAA, but maybe a short-term fix for him is kind of to shorten things and have him pitch in relief, high leverage, and see if he can do that and help work things out. So again, I've really never wavered. I see this team as a playoff team here in 2021. I think they're going to be one of the wild card teams. I would bet that they even win the wild card game, and then see who they end up facing in the ALDS. And I think it's onward and upward for this team. So we'll see if I'm right or not. And on that note, that's all I've got for you for today. Thanks so much for tuning in. Let's go Blue Jays, and I'll talk to you again next week.